Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Female Disruptors second annual virtual summit. I am very excited to have with me Sandy Carter, keynoting our tech panel, our tech category. And Sandy is a leader in tech and in Web3. So Sandy, you are named one of the most influential women in tech and beyond, and especially with women. So I want to just hand it over to you. And if you could share with us your journey into Web3 and take it away from there.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. And thanks for everybody listening out there. I think this is going to be such a fun conference virtually, and you're going to learn so much. And, I think learn and be curious is one of the best leadership principles out there. Those who learn and keep learning are those that are most successful. And that's kind of what happened with me on my journey into Web3. I was at Amazon Web Services, a phenomenal company. If you ever have a chance to work there, definitely do it. And I was obviously working on the cloud. And then I was asked to take on some of the new technologies and work on those with my partners. So things like artificial intelligence and IoT and AR and VR and blockchain. And so I started going down the rabbit hole on all of those technologies. I fell in love with the blockchain, thought it was so fascinating, the way the chain was immutable, but programmable at the same time, so secure. It was just fascinating to me to see use cases across financial services and manufacturing and so many different things. And then, of course, if you look at AR, VR, and IoT and AI, it all combines for the metaverse. So I just got really excited about that, was doing that as kind of side projects, helping my partners and my customers, and decided to make it permanent. So I became a permanent Web3er, if you would. And that's really been, I guess I would say, part of my career. I was the first to really create the concept of SOA, or service-oriented architecture, which the cloud's based on. Starting first and early in IoT, really, jumping in on a lot of these early technologies. And so I think what I'll do, Lisa, is just share a couple of screens to show what I'm working on now, which is around something called a digital identity. And this is really what got me excited to move from my my job at AWS to really help focus on digital identity, was really because of the power that digital identity has. And if we think about what Web3 is, I know, all of us know Web2, we work in it today, but Web3 is a little different. And if I have to say one word of the difference, it would be ownership. But a full definition is that it's an open movement. Most of the code in Web3 is open sourced. It gets forked, but it's open sourced. Its goal is to decentralize the internet so that not one person, one entity, one country, one company owns it. And the real goal is that individuals like you and I now own our data and own our digital identity. So that's a lot packed in there, but if you can just remember the difference, who owns the data, who owns the identity, is the big difference between Web2 and Web3. So let me just show you a little bit more about what I mean. So if you think about, I'm just going to do Web2 and Web3 here. Today, when you go log into an application, you log in with what is considered your digital identity. It's your username and your password. You do that today with Facebook, with Twitter, with TikTok. And as you log in with that username and password, that digital identity, it's linked or tied to the application or that platform. So it's tied to Google or tied to Facebook or tied to Twitter. How do I know that? Well, if I'm let's say I have 100,000 followers on Twitter, and then I go on another social platform, I can't take those followers with me. I can't take that influence or that reputation with me. Why? Because it's only valid on that particular application. Now, if I move into the Web3 world, that gets turned on its head, because now there's basically a way that you have your digital identity, and that way that yields that digital identity allows you to log into any application. So now your identity and your the way that you sign is, and the data is tied to you, not the application, but it's tied to you, which means you own that data and you get to decide how that data is used. So I'll give you a couple of examples. My husband and I, we're from Texas, and we were in California. We got invited to a Texas party, and people were really excited because they're like, wonder what real Texans are going to dress like. So my husband and I were chatting about it in the car, you know, which cowboy boots are we going to wear, which cowboy hat we're going to wear. We got home, and funny thing, not surprising, I started getting ads on Facebook for Stetson hats and Roper boots. How quickly they monetize that data about me. Now people laugh, they're like, oh, what's the big deal about that? But let's then think about another example. One of my very best friends, his son just got diagnosed with a very serious illness. He got the diagnosis. The first thing he did when he got home, which is what I would do as a concerned parent, would be to Google, what is this illness? What can I do? An hour later, he started telling me he started getting homeopathic solutions, insurance solutions, doctors who specialized in that. And he hadn't even told his extended family. So now that data about him, about his son, was shared when it was his data. And in fact, Google and Facebook alone, just this year, for last year, the data that they sold about you and I was valued at $100 billion. It has a lot of value. So for me, this is really a mission. I believe that your digital identity and your data that is owned by you is really a human right. Like, you are the owner of that data. You are what you share. And that's why I'm so excited about Web3. This is what a digital identity looks like in Web3. Kind of looks like maybe a Web3 LinkedIn page. Here you can see my identity is Sandy.nft. I can use Sandy.nft to log into any Web3 application. I think we have about 750 today. You can also see that I've linked it in with my social media. So now if I want to share my reputation, i.e., hey, I've got 90,000 followers on Twitter. If someone can use that, like many Web3 applications can, and give me credit for that, I can do that here. You also see I have my wallet connected. This is a crypto wallet, which means I can transact with my digital identity. I also have badges, like a badge from Intel talking about my innovation, a badge from an NFT collection, and I can also link this into my websites as well. So this is very powerful now. All of this data is owned by me, and I even have these little like badge things that I can use to share. But on the right-hand side is really the magic, because now I get to decide who gets my data, how much data they get, when do they get it, for how long do they get it? Because now when I sign into an application, I get to decide, I don't want to share my email with this company. I don't want to share who I am. I don't want them to know how many Twitter followers I have. I don't want them to know anything about me. I can do zero proof. Well, they don't know anything about me. And this is really, I think, part of the power of Web3. I have this data. I decide who, when, how much I want to share, if any at all. And then the really cool thing is I can get rewarded for this data. So for example, this is this is my digital identity, Sandy.nft. You can see here, I've gone to a music festival. Cool thing, like I can store my tickets to music concerts in my identity. So instead of having my big box with all my tickets in it that I never look at, I can put them here. And if I choose to share that with the music festival, in this particular case, since I've been 2 years in a row, if I go the third time, I get VIP seating, I get a t-shirt, I get a discount. So I get rewarded for having my data. Let me give you a broader application. Today, most companies, what they'll do is they will buy a list, let's say from Facebook. They'll assume a 40% fraud rate on that list, and then they'll send you out a 10% discount coupon. Well, if you think about Web3, this company that we're working with right now, they can give you a $1,500 discount, $1,500 versus 10% off, because of the money they save from buying it from Facebook and from the fraud rate. So now you're getting rewarded for that data, not someone else. You are getting rewarded for that data.
I love that.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
Yes, Very cool. Well, this is all in line with the theme being unstoppable, between Unstoppable Female Disruptors, our event, Unstoppable Domains, and Unstoppable Women of Web3. If you could share, a little bit about that, and then just in general, Sandy, like, how can women learn from you and be unstoppable in 2023. So while we're on the topic of unstoppable, this is the theme for Female Disruptors, and then we have Unstoppable Domains, and you are the founder of Unstoppable Women of Web3. Can you share with us what that means?
Yes, I'd love to do that. Let me just share a slide if I might. So on March 8th of 2022, I founded a group called Unstoppable Women of Web3. And because we had so many women who didn't apply for different jobs because they didn't know what Web3 was, I decided I wanted to take action, and I wanted to do it with other companies. So we formed this group to focus on educational streams and networking events. I wanted to start a speakers bureau so we could get more women speaking about Web3. And also for girls, right? Our next generation coming up. We started the group March 8th with 70 companies joining us. We now have 185. We're probably going to end the month at 200 companies who've joined, which is phenomenal, right? That so many companies care about this next generation technology and care about training women in this way, this form or fashion. In 2022, we trained 49,000 women in about 9 months on what is Web3, what is the metaverse, what is the blockchain. And we want to go triple, quadruple that. In fact, we announced an initiative with Latina community of educating 5 million women in the next 3 years, and that's our goal. But Lisa, one of the really important things that I wanted to do, one of my very favorite sayings is, if you can see it, you can be it. And so a lot of people started saying, well, you're the only woman in Web3, or I have to have you speak because there are no other women here. So we decided on March 8th to do the top 100 most inspirational women. We had so many women that applied, that had friends apply for them, that we did a second list in October of the 115 most inspirational women as well. And this was really important to me because it really puts these women up as examples where they can pull others through and teach others as well. But we also went one step further, and we partnered up with a group called Miss O'Cool Girls. And I have to tell you, this gives me goosebumps. Like this piece right here just gets me so excited because we did the top 25 most inspirational girls of Web3. The youngest girl on here is 6 years old.
Unbelievable.
Up to 17. And I got to meet one of them who was a 13-year-old young girl down at Art Basel. I mean, these girls are asking about smart contracts. The 6-year-old told me she's teaching her 4-year-old sister about blockchain and Web3 and how to navigate the metaverse. It's just awesome. Like the next generation is going to be so powerful. So this is what Unstoppable Women of Web3 is all about.
I love that. And I was fortunate enough to come to one of your events in Miami. You held a happy hour for Women of Web3, Unstoppable Women of Web3, that I attended. And it was, I networked with women that I would not have typically met because you brought us all together in one room, and we were able to, share stories and contact info, and, what I felt was a sacred, safe place for us. So I thank you for that. And for the message to women just in life, like what inspiration can you give, as we move forward? We had a pretty disruptive year, in a not so good way, disruptive past couple years for women. And, what advice do you give women to really, be a female disruptor and, be a change agent and enter tech and not be afraid?
Well, I still think that tech is a fabulous place to enter because, what company today doesn't have tech involved in it, right? Everything has tech involved in it. I think there's so much potential here. If I had to go back and give my younger self advice, it would be to take more risks. And I think that's what the market is really driving today, is for us to take risks in different types of areas. I know Web 2 and Web 3 and the whole tech space has just really suffered. But I think that those who persevere are going to be the builders, are going to be the innovators. And that's where we need women, right? I mean, all the studies show that the more diverse the team you have, the more innovation you get. And that's where we are right now, right? Look at ChatGPT taking the world by storm for AI, or, unstoppable blockchain taking the Web3 world by storm. We need women in those conversations. We need women participating. And I think it's the perfect time for us to get involved.
I agree. And one of the perfect places to start would be Unstoppable Women of Web3. Female disruptors, we have our tech vertical that we're constantly doing different educational tracks. And I think, collaborating with other women and learning as you go is a way to gain confidence. And then that would mean taking risks. What trends do you see coming up that we should be watching out for?
Oh, I see a couple. I think that AI plus Web3 is going to be a powerful combination. I haven't seen anything pick up with traction like I have with ChatGPT. We were just hosting a dinner, and every CIO at the dinner, every CIO had tried it.
Yes.
I think that's the fastest I've ever seen any tech pick up in my lifetime. I mean, it's just huge. And I think that, if you combine it with marketing or Web3, that's where you really see that power and that impact, in my mind. I also think that you're going to see a lot of digital identity coming up. We're seeing this not just from the Web3 companies, but also Web2 companies are reaching out to us as well. So I do see a big shift in who's looking at digital identity and the power and the promise of digital identity that is so real out there.
We had a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, a question just, which industries do you think will be the most impacted by Web3?
Well, I think that if you think about Web3 and the metaverse, I think retail will be it's already starting, right? Look at Nike, look at what Gucci's doing, Louis Vuitton, Adidas. I mean, that whole space is just going crazy. H&M just did a big contest too. So I think retail. I see healthcare, especially because of the metaverse, doing medical training and medical specialty areas are all using the metaverse for education. As I think that education will also be impacted. I teach a class and I do half of it in the metaverse and half of it in real life. And we're finding that the sessions that we do in the metaverse have 30% better retention than those that you're doing in real life. And why is that? Because when you're in the metaverse, you're experiencing things, you're doing things, you're not just listening. And I think experiences really stick with you stronger and greater. So those are, I think, the areas that I think will have a big pickup. Banking and finance has already been disrupted by DeFi today already. So
yes, definitely. And I was actually going to touch on the metaverse and NFTs. I already touched on the metaverse and, just your thoughts on the metaverse moving forward. We have a couple panels on the metaverse. We have a couple panels on NFTs. So what are your thoughts on, moving forward? The metaverse, I think, must have been the word of the year in some way, shape, or form last year, before. Now it's AI, but and NFTs were a lot hotter a year ago than they are now. But what are your thoughts on integrating NFTs and the metaverse into your whether it's your marketing or PR brand strategy?
Well, one of the predictions I made was that we're going to start to see an ad shift from regular traditional ads into the metaverse. We're already starting to see it now. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's really going to take off for sure. I would like to share just one slide though, because I think it's really helpful to see how all the stuff relates to each other. So if you look in the center of the slide, you see that basically everything is built on top of the blockchain. This is why I told you when I first dove into Web3 and the metaverse, I started with the blockchain. It's what everything is based on. And then if you move up from the blockchain, Web3, digital identity and accessing that decentralization all comes from Web3. Sitting on top of that, if you're working with a Web3 metaverse, which most of them are today, then you'll see you add in AR and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and that sits on top of your digital identity. That's how you get signed in, and the blockchain. And then, of course, these interfaces that were, need a lot of work in Web3, that ease of use piece. And then these AI governance models, which are DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. I think that will be the new future of the way things are governed. Even whole companies like Decentraland are now not shareholder owned, but DAO owned and based. So as we're talking about these things, they're all linked intrinsically with each other. So it's not, is the metaverse going to survive or Web3? Well, they're built on top of each other. Or is it blockchain or a DAO? Well, they're built on top of each other. And then when you think about the two-sided marketplace that exists, you'll see here this a creator economy and the consumption network. Where do NFTs fit? Well, they're built on top of the blockchain. You use digital identity or Web3 to get into them, and they exist in the metaverse. They're part of that creator economy. Music, art, land, you name it. That's what NFTs are. So for me, Lisa, I'm a very visual learner. So this really helps me see how everything kind of fits together and helps me to know when I'm talking about which thing and just to see the interdependence of it. Again, there's so many questions about this or that when it's really the stack that you're looking at.
Yes, definitely. And, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been studying and analyzing and experimenting with things like VR and augmented reality and AI and mixed reality. And all of that really is, kind of like feeding into all of that tech into where we are today in this, talking about Web3. So, and I'm glad that you mentioned also what you're doing with your class and that you're teaching it in part in the metaverse, because we're going to have a metaverse experience here at Female Disruptors where you'll be able to attend part of the event in a 3D and during, using spatial.io. And we also have a couple of our speakers on a panel that are going to bring whoever wants to join them into different digital worlds that they've created in Meta Horizon and plant a virtual garden and go to a museum that's in a digital world, which is a metaverse-like environment. So really like bringing people into, experimenting and at least just seeing what it's like to be in these different virtual worlds or metaverse-like type environments, whether it's an event or, a course or something. So I'm really excited to integrate that as well. And I'm so happy to hear that that it's successful, that it's being embraced with your course.
Yeah, and I would say if you're going to take the class, make sure you go into the metaverse because, some things you can learn through listening, other things you have to do. You got to get your hands dirty. And the metaverse is one of those. We built a headquarters in Decentraland, so in the metaverse. We learned so much from doing that. Like, for example, we put on our headquarters a door because who doesn't have a door on a headquarters? But most avatars, when they come in, have a hard time opening the door. So we would host a meeting and everybody would be standing outside the door because no one could figure out how to open it. And you don't learn that unless you do it. I also taught a class for a university and one of the professors wanted to come in. So I was like, okay, I'm going to teach you. And he's like, no, I got it. Well, he did get into the class, but he spent the entire class on the ceiling. He couldn't figure out how to get down. He kept DMing me, how do I get down? How do I get down? So all the students saw this other professor stuck on top of the ceiling the whole class because it's not easy yet. It's not intuitive. So definitely attend that. Definitely try it out. Even if you get stuck on top of the ceiling, you won't be there for long. And pretty soon you'll be teaching others how to get down off that ceiling,
Definitely. And the other fun thing about just exploring different, whether it's Decentraland or Horizon or Altspace VR, you're experimenting with building different avatars and how your avatars are functioning and working in all of these different types of virtual spaces. So I think just doing that alone, I'm going to teach yoga and virtual reality, again, and I did it originally just to learn how to, move myself around and actually teach somebody, teach and half the time I was learning as I go too. So I just think
Yeah.
that's my motto.
That's awesome. I love that because I think that as you get in there and you're doing it, you really learn so much. We just made an announcement, Unstoppable with Ready Player Me, which has an avatar that works in over 6,000 different metaverses. And one of the things that we did yesterday is we trained over 6,000 people on creating their own Ready Player Me avatar. We made it as easy as we could, but we got that set up. So if you are looking for it, we're going to give everybody a free digital identity from Unstoppable. Once you get that, you can then build your free Ready Player Me avatar as part of that. So definitely go in there and do it. It's super fun and you'll learn a lot.
Okay, great. Well, Sandy, I can't wait to build another avatar and experiment and, have another persona out there. But do you have any last words of wisdom before we close up? And if we get any questions here, after the pre-record, then we will definitely send them your way.
Yeah, that sounds great. I guess I would end this way. I would say, get your digital identity because it's the perfect time. We're just getting started. We're in that dial-up phase. So he or she who gets that digital identity now and starts learning will be way ahead of the curve. It is your gateway into the metaverse. Two, I would say learn by doing, getting your hands dirty, learn by doing. Check out not only all the new things on Web 2, but Unstoppable has now embedded ChatGPT into what we're doing. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that where ChatGPT will be embedded, AI will be embedded. So make sure that you're learning about all topics, not just Web 2, but AI and metaverse and Web 3 and the chain. I think learning is going to be a real key. And the third thing is, I think it's really important that we as women support each other. So, this group, Unstoppable Women of Web 3, having a group of people that you can talk to and share experiences with and ask that crazy question that you don't want anybody else to know is so important. So make sure you get involved in one of these groups so that you can get that support, that encouragement, and that community that's so critical.
Sandy, thank you so much for being a female disruptor. I appreciate you so much. And I know everybody here that is watching you today or tomorrow or in the future really appreciates your time and your dedication to women in tech.
Thank you. And make sure reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, basically I'm Telegram everywhere. So reach out if you have any questions. Thank you, Lisa, for the honor. And thank you for being a female disruptor.
Thank you, Sandy.